K-Squid thanks the 260 listeners who responded during our recent pledge drive, contributing more than $26,000 toward our operating expenses and $11,000 toward our signal expansion campaign. Your support makes it possible to bring you the many diverse programs you hear every day on KSQD, and we are so grateful. Listener support is an essential part of our ongoing operation, and if you missed us, there's always time to contribute at ksqd.org. And thanks. It's time now for Talk of the Bay. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and joining me here live in the KSQD studios, someone who was a regular voice on our airwaves for a while but got so busy with politics he had to duck out for a while, but he's back. Ayo Banjo, welcome.
Hi, thanks Rachel for having me.
It's great to have you back.
I never left. I just was so, involved.
We knew you were there and we could feel you listening. Yeah. And that's what matters. But your voice is important too. So what are you doing now? You've worn a lot of hats, and I'm wondering which one you're wearing these days.
Yeah. So I have like a consulting firm that I put together called Banjo Strategies. And essentially I just do what I do in community organizing, but now I help nonprofits really mainly expand their diversity program. So really mainly I work with Santa Cruz Black as a client to really run their programs office. So I oversee their mentorship program. I oversee an affordable housing program for the Black community in Santa Cruz, as well as a Black neighborhood program, which is where we put together different community events that involve the entire community. We just had the Ketanji Brown Jackson dinner in August, which was a celebration to honor her. It was beautiful. We had it at the Resource Center for Nonviolence. So I work with them. I've also worked with climate companies right now to help really diversify the climate scene by trying to get some of our climate protesters and organizers on the ground to get hired at different climate startups and companies, so that way they can actually get paid for the activism and the work that they do. So
what's Santa Cruz Black? Back up a little bit, because I haven't heard of them. Are they relatively new in town? Or?
Yeah, Santa Cruz Black was an organization that was started back in 2020 out of the George Floyd Black Lives Matter movement, and it was talking about how do we have an organization that's dedicated to really building Black retention in the community and trying to diversify our community. And so Santa Cruz Black was created out of that. We just were awarded our nonprofit 501c3 status, I believe, a few months ago.
Congratulations. Having gone through that, it's always a hoop to jump through.
Right. And it's, in California especially, there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of layers. So I'm super excited to have that recognition from the government. And so now we do work in that nonprofit area. So
that's really good. Cool. I'm so glad to hear. You were at UCSC working there, right?
Yeah. I was working at admissions. I was working for UCSC admissions. They were one of my first clients. Funny enough, I told them, hey, like I want to see more Black programming, more Black curriculum, more the ways that we are trying to engage Black youth to be attracted to UCSC. We need to kind of modernize our communication strategies and figure out what really sticks like a honey on a board. And so I was lucky enough to get that encouragement from them, and they gave me the space and the opportunity to really play some of those methods. And so they were a big supporter of the cookout as well, as we hosted for Black History Month this past February. So and that's an annual cookout now. So
nice. So you're making institutional changes too that are things that are going to live for many years, which is important. So often we focus on one event, but making regular, recurring events is really important. UC Santa Cruz is on my mind because I just got a letter. I'm faculty there. Mm-hmm. And one of my students was really upset yesterday and told me about what happened up there, which was apparently on move-in day, which is that now 3 or 4 weeks in the past. It's gone by quickly. A family of Mexican descent was bringing their daughter to drop her off and had a Mexican flag on their car. And when they came back from dropping her off, they found it burned and thrown into a ditch. This was really upsetting to the friends and the person who's moving in and her entire family, to make them feel very unwelcome. And then it seems what happened was it was being investigated, but only today a letter came from the administration saying that this is unacceptable. And I'll read a little of it. But in that space between what happened and the letter speaking out about it, there was a lot of upset, and there was a march apparently to the chancellor's office by students who didn't feel welcome on campus. And some of these had just moved in. So I don't know if you were aware of this, but it's kind of unfortunate pattern of hate crimes up there. I looked up a bunch of articles. Hate crime this and a swastika in the bathroom and a burn flag here. There's a presence on campus that kind of invisible but bad.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the hard part to deal with is the lack of response. We want to see more quicker response. We want to see, and that's the job of the administration, is to serve the students essentially. And so when you have a problem like that come up, that needs to be taken seriously. I remember it just reminds me of the situation in 2020 when when I created the UCC and ACP, we had this issue come up with the noose that was hung at the intersection of High and I think was that Bay and High, yeah,
right at the entrance of campus,
right at the entrance. And so we were kind of responding to the issue there by saying, look, you guys didn't respond in time, and now you're calling it a loosely not tied rope,
trying to downplay it,
trying to reframe, exactly what the issue is, which, essentially in this case would reframe how many incidents there are in the police reports, which would reduce the amount of incidents, which would make the UC look, essentially better, because it just looks safer, right? And so everything, if you can reduce the noise sometimes, then you can have control of the narrative. And in this case, this is why I support those students who are on the ground protesting, because at the end of the day, they need to have their voices heard, and they need the administration to take them seriously. And I think, unfortunately enough, you have situations where people wait out leadership. They wait, for the people who were at the forefront of everything to go, and then they have a whole new cohort, and they just expect for them to somehow be normalized to a different type of system or environment. But I'm hoping that we can continue to empower our youth and to, be behind them as they're making their voices heard. And then I also want to see just those types of, demands that are put together. I think that's one of the most critical parts of this organizing that we do. We have to come with a very clear ask, and we have to know that those asks are more than just symbolic, right? There needs to be institutional, budgetary, fiscal investments in our community. We are seen as a HSI university, right? And so when
that's
you have
Hispanic serving institution.
Yes. And so when you have that kind of label as a university, you have a specific responsibility, really, to our Hispanic and Mexican and Latinx students. So it's super important for us to really see what those demands look like, and I really encourage them to put together an agenda and to work with Mecha, the UCSC, and work with all these other Latinx organizations who have been at the forefront of Mexican students' voices since day one, and work with them to figure out what does a coherent agenda look like to institutionalize the changes that they want to see at the UC.
Yeah, I'll read just a short bit of the first paragraph. This is from Cynthia LaRive, the chancellor, and it came out today to all faculty. I don't know if it went to students. It just says, "Dear campus community," so I am assuming that it was. During move-in week, someone burned and destroyed the Mexican flag of a new student and their visiting family. The destruction of this important symbol of Mexican and Chicanx culture is disgraceful and abhorrent. Acts like these attempt to inspire fear and make some members of our community feel like they don't belong, and slow our work by pulling us out of community with one another and undermining our shared values. It is so important that we not give in to those who seek to divide us. So there was a lot longer, but I thought it was a good letter, but I was surprised by the lag time. And in that space, people started to feel very unsafe. So
right.
Hopefully that will spur some action to really investigate these hate crimes, which is what they are. We kind of have an assumption in Santa Cruz that we're all safe here, because we're kind of a friendly, open, loving community for the most part.
Yeah.
But a lot of that has been emboldened, that kind of behavior, by the previous administration, with overt dog whistles. And so I wonder if this increase we're seeing is just part of the national trend. It's always been there bubbling under, but it seems to be emboldened and happening in plain view almost.
Yeah. The hyperpolarization of our communities, of our politics, and you see places like UCSC where it's very it's painted as a very liberal environment, and then you have people who don't think that their voices reflect in the mainstream politics of that, who may be taking more extreme approaches. I just also want to push back on the narrative of like this being in some cases like I guess more prevalent than it was before. I think it's just being more recognized. I think that we are more cognizant of it, and we're more outraged of it because of all these movements that have occurred over time that has made the society more conscious of how our communities of color are treated, right? So I think that these issues were always here. I think that I don't think that I think we need to use this urgency to come together and to stay organized and to have demands and to have ways that we're institutionalizing. Because my fear is when you have really great organizers and protesters on the ground, and you have things moving forward, and you have people talking about the issue, and you have energy, and you have people responding, right? And you have everything going on, and then what gets lost is how that is going to be something that prevents the next generation of having to do that exact same work. And I think that we just have to figure out how to cut the cycle, how to break the cycle, because it's unsustainable to have so much emotional baggage and trauma, and then bring it to the forefront of your university where you're trying to you're trying to move up the socioeconomic ladder, you're trying to get something for your family, you're trying to do things, that you're trying to fight back all this trauma and internal pain, and then you're having to do that and face that. I was on the ground. I remember those feelings. I remember seeing those people around me. So that's why I do what I do now, because I just know how important it is to take care of your nutrition, your mental health, your home, your kitchen table issues, so that way you can show up for the community in a really serious, sustainable way,
Thank you. I'm speaking with Ayo Banjo about recent events at UCSC, and we're going to move off the hill in a moment and talk about Santa Cruz politics, which he's been involved with as well as election season approaches. But what you said very much resonated, because I have 90 students there this fall, and they're all freshmen, and 99% of them are people of color. They're at John R. Lewis College, and the theme of the class is social justice and community, and we just happened to be studying racism and oppression this week when this event happened, and so it's fostered some really good, open and honest conversation about why people came to the university and what they hope to get out of it, and they certainly didn't expect to be greeted with a burned flag, a Mexican flag. So hopefully this will be dealt with, and there'll be a more proactive case. Moving down to town, which is not exactly the separate world, because we're all living together in the same community. Most students live off campus, so it's not like up there and then here, because students vote. How is the election season working out for you? What part are you playing in all of this?
Well, so funny enough, I am trying to set us up for really healthy conditions in 2024. Let's just be very clear. I don't think about the next month. We're thinking about years ahead, and I think it's important to think about the next generation of Santa Cruz leaders, young, diverse folks who really have those leadership skills, who are people who have studied at UCSC, people who have worked in the Cabrillo College, people who have worked in the community, people, service workers, people bringing their stories and their identities and their skill sets to the forefront of how we build community through consensus and compromise, but also really just through understanding each other and trying to move forward together on the issues that we do care about. So I'm hoping that I can play a role by trying to support those candidates that are kind of trying to get their name out there. We have new folks running for office now, and I'm just trying to give my best advice to them as to how to communicate about your issues, your ideas. I'm going to be very blunt. The reality of Santa Cruz politics is a mess. This year is chaos. The district elections are a humongous mess. If you guys do not know what that is essentially we broke Santa Cruz into district elections this year, and it could have been more equitable the way they drew them, but it was very much slanted, and it was passed very abruptly. And Shebra was part of those folks who voted for this new district mapping that has caused so much chaos. And I think that right now what we're doing is we're trying to find candidates who could run. The candidates were not ready to run. People do not have their campaigns ready. There are people who decide to run, literally 60 days out of the actual campaign who barely got, their bank accounts together. You have folks who, don't have a lot of energy on the ground, don't have a lot of volunteers, people who are planning on running in future years because they know they're not going to win this year. It's just insane, the chaos that I'm seeing out here. And then the candidates in the opposition is not even that hard. It's like this could actually be easy candidates that you can beat, and you are not doing it because you do not have your stuff together. Yeah. And so my honest take of the reality of politics is that people need to come together. What you really need, it's not just about an organization or a whole operation on the ground, or even about inspiring everybody. You can start out with a platform, with a policy goal, with a method of how you want to get past the barriers, knowing that most likely it's going to continue to be a 4-2 dynamic between these folks who are Democrats, these folks who are progressives. How are you going to deal with that situation and move forward on issues where you care about and be uncompromising? And what are you even uncompromising about? I don't know that these folks have really thought them out. None of them, like on every side of the aisle, have thought these things out. And so I feel like the bar is so low right now to run in Santa Cruz politics. It is so low, and it's so disappointing to see that people don't even put together a platform that could be somewhat of a catch. Come up with a smart acronym, come up with change, hope. Like, what happened to the most? I feel like the work that you see in campaigns on universities are more comprehensive than some of the work that you're seeing in the ways that they're presenting their campaigns now. And that's just me taking an honest approach to what I'm seeing behind the scenes.
No, I think it's important to know what this redistricting has unleashed, and perhaps it'll settle out in future years, but it sounds like this year it's, like you said, a mess. I'm sure people have asked you, since when you get asked for advice about running, people will turn around and say, well, are you thinking of running in the future? So I'll ask you, are you thinking about running for office in some future date?
Well, I'll say this. I was asked to run in 2020. And obviously I did not want to run. I had different things I was doing. I was just graduating university. And I was asked this year as well. And it was very tempting, but I feel like I said, right now, the bar is very low. And I think that that does not mean that I should somehow get in it because it's so low. I have a certain bar for myself. There are things that I want to see myself still do for the community there. I want to have deliverables if I'm going to be in that position. And I want to have folks, telling me I don't need to be pushing myself for something like that. I don't need to put myself at the forefront. It should be organic, right? And so I'm not trying to, create a prosthetic campaign, with what we're seeing here. Like I have a different standard for myself. So I just want to continue to do what I love the work that I'm doing right now. I'm building affordable housing right now. It's so different to go from an activist who supports affordable housing to actually trying to identify a redevelopment project and actually go through the process of navigating fair housing laws and dealing with all these different specifics on trying to get housing and bringing money together, bringing these experts together in the room to figure out what this looks like. And also, there's a lot going on there,
It really does give you a different perspective.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask where you're building affordable housing, what planning you're part of?
Well, I honestly am not really supposed to talk about much with that program because we are just getting started on phase 1 out of 4 phases. This is going to be a 5-year program. Phase 1, right now, we're about 60% complete, and it should be complete around January. We're just bringing the core steering team together, which does include members of a city council, members of the county supervisor. We have folks from the housing developing a nonprofit area. We have land trust experts here. So I have put together a team of folks that can help really advise me on the best approaches to actually go about acquiring this type of land and supporting it for our Black and BIPOC communities. So yeah, it's a process. It's a learning process, definitely. And I love the process of learning about how to do this, because then in the event where you are, needing to make decisions about these really crucial issues, you have these different experiences that you can bring to that forefront. And
you see it from the inside, in other
Right.
words, instead of from the outside.
Exactly.
And it's a different view, I'm sure. Well, that's great to hear about all of that you're doing, because the community certainly needs more affordable housing. That's one thing we can all agree on. We can argue about how to get there, but it seems like nobody is arguing we should not have it. In fact, I heard one time that we need 500,000 new units in LA alone just to house the people that need houses. And I was like,
Right.
that's going to be. And this one developer of the affordable housing was saying, and I'm putting out 4,000, and that's a lot. But we
Right.
need 500,000
Right.
down just in LA. So we're, yeah.
And I know California needed, like, I think they passed a bill where they are trying to make like 2.5 million like units a year, and right now they're only making 100,000 a year for the state.
It's hard. Things don't move fast, and there's a lot of red tape.
Right.
If you just joined me, I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and this is Talk of the Bay, our evening talk show, local issues discussed right here on the airwaves live on KSQD, KSQD Santa Cruz. And coming up at 6 o'clock, it's the kooky side of crazy, an informative but lighthearted look at mental health. Your host, Ryan Althouse, welcomes neuroscientist Langdon Roberts, founder of Santa Cruz Neurofeedback Center. Join the fun as Ryan and Langdon give you a crash course in understanding and training your brain for mental health. That's coming up at 6 o'clock here on KSQD, your community radio station that's followed by jazz throughout the evening. So we'll move from local, and in the last 7 minutes, Ayo Banjo will talk about national politics. Did you listen to the hearings today? Did you catch any of them?
The hearings.
The January 6th.
Yes. I heard that they were going to have Trump. They're trying to...
They subpoenaed him.
Yeah, they subpoenaed him. That's going to be interesting.
If he ever shows up. But that most people doubt. Or he's just going to wait out the clock till something else happens.
Right.
Yeah, it would be very interesting.
I mean, I think it would be... I don't know if this is going to be public.
If he was there, it would be very interesting if it were public. I didn't hear that part, but that was the very end of the hearing where they said we're subpoenaing him.
Yeah.
And my whole class was watching, and they erupted into applause.
Yeah. Okay. I think we all would love to see that, definitely, that
show.
I don't know if they need him, honestly. I think they have a lot of evidence that they need to prosecute him, or they have criminal referral, that they're trying to send to the Department of Justice, right? The Department of Justice is most likely going to, Merrick Garland most likely is going to get him just for the files that he had at Mar-a-Lago, right?
Well, we'll see. Merritt, we're counting on you, and it's not about payback. It's about doing the right thing.
Right.
It was fascinating, I thought, and they wrapped it all up. It was like a true crime story at the end, and they really kind of laid it down very systematically in a very logical and clear way. I thought that the writing... The scripting was great because it was super understandable, the chronology of events. And the take home, I thought, was he knew about it, he planned it, and he set it up so that the logic followed that, if he knew he was going to lose, A. Right. B, he knew that if he told his supporters that, they would go away. But if he told them he had won and that they should do something, then maybe he could hang on to power. And it was intentional. So that part, I thought they proved, if it was a court of law, they should have proved it without a doubt. What I was going to ask you about is the midterms coming up and what we can do as citizens to kind of keep an eye out to make sure these so-called poll watchers aren't harassing people and limiting their rights to vote. Right.
And that was what I was going to say, because my fear is not really with Trump. Like, whether it's this year or next year, he's going to be in trouble. He's in hot water in New York. He's in hot water in the federal, state, local level. So I don't think that he's going to escape, even if he was to run. My fear is, the people who have taken on the Trump approach to politics. And for me, that means very aggressive, very, win at all costs, even if that cost is at democracy. And you see a lot of these local levels and state level positions that were usually not getting as much attention. Now they're getting attention, like Secretary of State offices or local elections official offices, where you have people who may have the Trump ideology of trying to, shift things around, if it doesn't look like their outcome, taking these positions. And so, or running for these positions this midterms. So number one thing is you have to get out there and vote, and you have to vote top to bottom, and fill out all of them.
Vote.
Yes.
How do you think the younger demographic is looking at this election? I know we had a lot of turnout the last one because it was like this do or die, but I'm also feeling the same feeling again. Do you think youth are generally energized or not?
I think that we are 100% engaged. I think that folks definitely know what's going on. I think there's a difference between being aware of things going on and then going out there and actually voting on them. And that's my biggest fear, because it is not a presidential election. You are gonna just naturally see lower turnout on all sides, on all demographics, all ages. But with our generation, I think with everything going on top of issues like inflation and just issues going on with personal lives of people, I'm hopeful that we can continue to go on college campuses and talk to them about why it's important to vote. I actually am the civic engagement chair for the state California, Hawaii, NAACP Youth and College Division. So my job is to encourage voter turnout and encourage and try to get folks out there and talk to them about why it's so important to vote. But I do hope that we can start to kind of align the different concerns and the fears that we have as the young people with the different politics that are playing out, that are at the background of why those things are the way they are, and start to really align, what are the things that we want, and who's in our way of getting that, and then how do we go out there and vote as our act of trying to actually push down that barrier. So I think that it's just about trying to reframe those narratives, which you talk a lot about, Rachel. We didn't talk about this at all in this podcast, but we were in school together, and you were my professor, and we did talk a lot about political communication and strategy, and I loved your class. If anyone's out there, take Rachel's class.
He's talking about my media and social movements class at UC Santa Cruz.
Yes. So reframing those narratives. Yeah. We know how important that is.
Those who control the narrative control the world, really.
Right.
They have the power. So that's why community radio is so important,
right,
because we're framing narratives that you frame, that our listeners frame, at what's important to our local community. Yeah. And that's why we love having you here, because you're so energizing and inspiring. So could you come back again, please? We are having an election night, actually, and we'd love to have you as part of it. So you're invited. It's on November 8th if you're not busy, and it'll be starting, I think, at 5.
That sounds very exciting.
At least be part of it. I mean, it's going to go on for several hours. So come by in person. We'll talk offline about when it starts and ends, but you're welcome to be as much a part of it as you can or want to be. And we're just going to be including listeners and various people in the various local campaigns, but we're also going to be looking at the news as it unfolds around the country. So kind of doing a local, national look.
No, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
I'll definitely follow up with you.
All right. Ayo Banjo, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate you.
Good to see you again.
Yes.
All right. Send my next guest in. That would be Rick Walker. He's out in the lobby, so you can wave him in, and we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back with Rick Walker and Looping. Stay tuned. This is Talk of the Bay. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman.